Yo, what's going on, everybody? The Cool Geek here, and I'm actually another video. And today I'm going to be talking about the multipliers for the 8 gates in Naruto. That being the 1st through 8th gate. Let's get into it. Okay, so like I said, today I'll be explaining the multipliers of the 8 gates and some of the misconceptions surrounding them. So, first off, it was stated by Kakashi in the Chunin exams that the first gate is over a 12 times multiplier. Specifically, he said it amps the user by dozens of times, not a dozen. Dozens, as in plural, as in at least 2 dozen. As well as in another translation, it says tens of times the first gate, as well as in the anime sub, it says several tens of times, several implying at least 3. Now, there was a statement in Rock Lee's flashback in the Forest of Death that has the guy saying that in base, people only use 20% of their strength, but when they open the first gate, they use 100%, implying that the first gate is a 5 times boost, which most people who have seen the Gaara fight should know that this statement shouldn't be taken too seriously, because this would mean that the other gates don't amp AP or speed, which isn't true at all. Because Lee got so fast in the 4th gate that he was pinballing Gaara so hard that it was like Gaara's sand didn't even exist. This is his auto reflex sand that moves without him even like knowing about it. As well as the fact that Jubi Madara thought Guy trying to fight him in the 7th gate was an insult, and 7th gate Guy didn't even scratch him, but in the 8th gate, Guy almost killed that same Madara, and it was so bad that Madara got like half of his body blown off and had to regenerate. I'll talk more about Guy scaling in the future. I plan to make a video on him sometime in the near future, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, there was clearly an AP difference there. Now that that's over with, on to the next section. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, okay, so that's the amp that the first gate gives you, how about the others? And it's pretty simple. Occam's razor would dictate that the distance between all of the gates would be the same multiplier onto the previous one. Now, there's 2 ways to interpret that. One, the first gate is a 10 to 12 times multiplier onto base, and the second gate would be a 20 to 24 times multiplier onto base. In other words, the multiplier would be linear. Or 2, the first gate could be a 10 to 12 times multiplier, and the second gate would be a 100 to 144 times multiplier, or in other words, that the multiplier could be exponential. Now, this makes a big difference because if it's linear, the 8th gate is a 80 to 96 times multiplier onto base, and if it's exponential, it would be a 100 million to 429,986,696 times multiplier onto base. See, that's a pretty big difference. Okay, on to the next category. Because Chakra is linked to pretty much all jutsu, that means in addition of amping AP and speed, the 8 gates also amp hacks. To learn more about the inherent hacks that Chakra gives you, I recently dropped a video on pretty much everything you need to know. Link will be in the description. Also, the 8 gates amp speed and AP the same. As a matter of fact, Guy specifically mentions the 8 gates being Neji's kryptonite because it makes Lee too fast, implying it amps speed to a relative degree, if not more than it amps AP. Also, this makes sense because the gates directly amp your muscles, and muscles are directly responsible for both AP and speed. Okay, so now I'm going to be going over why I think the 8 gates are exponential. This section will be divided into 2 subsections, since this will be the longest part of the video. So, it was stated in the anime and the manga that no matter who you are, opening the 8th gate makes you stronger than the 5 Kage. By how much depends on the translation, but we'll be on to that later. So that pretty much debunks the 8 gates being linear. The amps should be exponential because the difference between Genin level and Kage level is massive. The weaker Genin are around City Block level, as I went over in my Haku video and my Kid Sasuke videos. And Onoki has lifted an island-sized turtle with one hand, and his AP should be higher than his lifting strength. And in terms of AP, Onoki isn't one of the top tier among the 5 Kage. Okay, so now let's go over the conflicting anime and manga statements about the 8 gates from the war. So I've seen 2 translations of the manga that roughly say the same thing. It says that the 8th gate is a 10 times amp onto base, although it goes on to contradict itself by saying it amps the user to surpass the 5 Kage, as well as the fact that it's contradicted by every other piece of lore. In the anime sub and dub, it says that it amps you tens of times the 5 Kage. Now, the reason I said the manga scans contradict themselves is because that they also say that it brings you to a level that surpasses the 5 Kage, and like I hinted at earlier, the difference between Genin level and Kage level would be over 100 times. I'll get to the approximate amount a bit later, and it's also consistent that the 8th gate can make any random fodder stronger than the 5 Kage. Also, about the Genin to Kage level thing, the only one that we know that used the 8th gate before Guy did was his dad, Might Die, and he was known as the Eternal Genin, as well as the fact that it was stated before Guy used the gates that if anyone opens it, they will surpass the 5 Kage, which means that when Dai used the 8th gate, he must have surpassed the 5 Kage. The subbed and dubbed version go as far as to say opening the 8th gate makes you tens of times stronger than the 5 Kage. This is supported by the fact that when Dai opened the 8th gate, he was 7 Swordman of the Mist level, and keep in mind that Zabuza assassinated a Kage, and he was one of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist, and it wasn't stated that he was a particularly strong member or anything. Like, he wasn't an Akatsuki member like Hisame was. So, Dai had to fight 7 people that are all potentially Kage level. Now, as I said earlier, I'm gonna put a number on the difference between Genin level and Kage level. Now, the way I feel that it's best to do this is that we find the difference between city block level and island level. Keep in mind the result will be a low ball. The high end for city block level is 100 tons of TNT, and the low end for island level is 4.3 gigatons of TNT. Now, the difference between a gigaton and a ton is 1 billion times. So, after doing all the conversions and solving the leftover equation, we get the difference is 43 million times of a difference between Genin level and Kage level. And for one last nail in the coffin, if you take the anime statement of the 8th gate making you tens of times greater than the 5 Kage, and you downplay it by saying that it's only 10 times the 5 Kage, and you multiply that by the value of the difference between Genin level and Kage level, you get 430 million times difference, which is surprisingly close to the value that we got for the gates just by using the 12 times statement from the tuning exams. As a reminder, the number from before was 429,981,696 times, and this number is 430 million. Also, if you round the old number to the nearest millionth place, you'll get 430 million as well. So it looks like the most consistent multiplier for the 8 gates would be around 430 million times of a difference. This is basically confirmed by the original 12 times statement, and it's also confirmed by the anime sub and dubbed. And as for a bonus piece of information about like the multipliers for the gates, it was also stated in one of the data books that it was dozens of times difference. And this data book statement is referring directly to the Madara thing, right? It says stated something along the lines of it being like several dozens times fold or something like that, right? And the phrasing leads me to believe that the exponential nature of the gates would hold up. But that's just a side note. We don't really need that. It's just supporting information that if you do the math between like Kage level and Genin level and multiply by 10 for tens of times the Kage, you get a similar number to the 12 times being exponential. So that's all I really need to say for that. Now, that's basically it for that section. On to the next one. Real quick before we get to the recap, I found another piece of evidence which is really good for this sort of video, and that is a manga statement from the Might Guy fight, essentially. And it's the same one from the anime that I showed you earlier that said the 8 gates make you surpass the 5 Kage by tens of times, except it's from the manga, and apparently it's from the Viz, which is really good. The Viz team seems to be like, one of the best like translations for it. So it just adds to the consistency of it being in the manga and the anime, and to some extent in like the guide that I mentioned earlier. And yeah, it's overall pretty consistent. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get to the outro. Okay, so time for a recap. Overall, the 8 gates are an extremely good power-up that amps your AP, speed, and hacks by increasing the amount of chakra in your body by at least 10 to 12 times per gate, with the 8th gate being a 430 million times boost onto base, which in turn makes you tens of times stronger than the 5 Kage. All of the links will be in the description, and my next video will be a power scale on Rock Lee from part 1, so be on the lookout for that. I've already started working on it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. The Cool Geek out. Bye.